I'm Ranjith Paul from Informa Markets. Welcome back to the fourth episode of Biopharma Leader Stories. This year, we are bringing Biopharma Conclave back to Mumbai in a totally new avatar with new outlook and new set of tracks. Before the commencement of the event, we have planned to get the leaders and their experience closer to you. These interviews will have insights, advices, and opinions that have been gained through years in the industry by then. Today, I'm honored and privileged to have with me a very special and renowned guest, Dr. Ranjan Chakrabarti. Dr. Chakrabarti has over 34 years of experience in the pharmaceutical and biopharma industries. He is now working as an independent consultant and advising Telangana State, NIPR, and several conference organizations. He was a vice president of global biologics at US Pharmacopoeia. During this tenure in USP, he was overseeing scientific outreach activities in Southeast Asia and China. He was also overseeing the biologics laboratories in India, US, and China. Before joining USP, Dr. Ranjan was leading the biology group at Dr. Reddy's Drug Discovery and also served at key management positions in GVK Biosciences. He has worked with several national and international companies for discovery and development of both chemical and biological molecules. Before joining the pharma industry, he has also worked 7 years in academics at the USA and successfully coordinated research projects in cancer, cell biology, and diabetes. He has also guided several PhD students. Dr. Ranjan is the co-inventor of 32 US patents, published 62 papers in peer-reviewed international journals, and presented 96 lectures in international and national conferences. Welcome, Dr. Chakrabarti.
Thank you. It's nice to have this discussion because I think it's a very relevant topic.
Absolutely, and thank you for coming. The theme for today's interview is going to revolve around the future of biotherapeutics in India. And with that in mind, my very first question to you, Dr. Chakrabarti, is where does the Indian biopharma industry stand today as compared to its Asian counterparts?
Yeah, I think let us see it in different sectors because I think Indian biopharma, the standing of Indian biopharma varies based on the sectors what we are discussing. In general, some of the good news maybe we should discuss first, that India is among the top 12 destinations for biotechnology globally and third largest biotechnology destination in the Asia Pacific region. Indian bioeconomy has observed almost about a 95% increase in the last 5 years. And with the COVID pandemic boosting it even further, because vaccine is a big part of our bioeconomy. Today, our bioeconomy stands around, I think, $80 billion and is projected to go about $150 billion by 2025. Now, as I was talking about the sectors, in India, we can think of two major sectors, biosimilar and vaccine, and the other is the upcoming cell and gene therapy. And I will come all these separately, that how are they working and where do they stand vis-a-vis to our Asian counterparts. That we know that in biosimilar, first let us discuss biosimilar. There are about 122 biosimilars which are approved in India, and it has made these products accessible at affordable price in our country, which is a big achievement. But a major chunk of these products are actually sold in the domestic market because there is a concern that what is sold in India is not globally acceptable. This perception about the quality of India-made biosimilars is weak in developed nation, and that need to be addressed if really we want to make a global impact, and which I think we have the capability and capacity to do it. Unfortunately, some of the events, especially the recent event which has happened with Biocon and DCGI, doesn't really help us in this aspect. So we should try to avoid this kind of incidents. There is another issue also, although we are talking about that we have drastically reduced the price of the biosimilars in India. If we look at the global market, if we look at the example of trastuzumab, as compared to our Asian counterparts, especially the Korean companies, our products are still more costly. So this cost benefit is also a question mark. That is, if really it is there. Now the other sector, which is vaccine, I think the situation is significantly different there. Indian manufacturers, we know, traditionally are strong in vaccine. They have about WHO 16 WHO pre-qualified vaccine. And we are already supplying vaccines to over 150 countries around the world. Now, due to this pandemic, vaccine has become the topmost item on the agenda for all the governments across the world as well as the investors. And we all know how Indian vaccine companies have lived up to the expectation and made our country proud, not only helping us to reduce the number of deaths in COVID infection, but also supplying this across the world at a very reasonable price. Another development which has happened during this COVID period is Indian vaccine manufacturers were mostly working on the traditional vaccines with the traditional platforms. But this time they have gone to the novel platforms such as DNA, mRNA, protein-based vaccines. So this is a big change in the Indian vaccine. And if I look around and with my experience with USP when I was traveling all over the Asia, I think in vaccine area, we are ahead of our Asian counterparts. There is another area which is the startup area, where the most of the cell and gene therapy work happening in the other Asian countries. DBT BIRAC is actually giving a big help to the startups. Today, I think we have about 5,000 startups in India, and we expect it to grow about 10,000 in 2025. Now, to achieve that, today we are, I think, about 25 to 30,000 people are working in the startups. But to have more startups and then to mature these startups to unicorn, we need about 15 lakhs people. And that is a big, big challenge. Because if we look at our Asian counterparts, three areas we lack. One is the innovation gap between India and Asia actually is widening day by day. Because academics in China, Korea, Japan, and Singapore are much more active in this space, and they have an excellent collaboration with the industry, which is not present yet in India. Besides, India has far less trained biopharma scientists. Today, to a large extent in pharma sector, I think we have a good supply of manpower. But biopharma area, we are still lagging behind, and especially with respect to our Asian counterparts. Besides, China and Southeast Asian countries were able to bring back a lot of their talents from developed nations, which we are not able to do. Third is the funding. The biopharma funding is skyrocketed across the world, especially in China, Korea, Japan, even in Singapore. But if you look at it, India, our VCs are very skeptical on Indian biopharma, and they have a good confidence on the IT and service sector. And you will see most of the VC monies is actually going there, which need to be changed. Otherwise, the startup system will not grow, and that will not only stop our growing up to the high value chain, but also in the new areas of biopharma like cell and gene therapy.
Thank you for those insights. And now I think you briefly did touch upon even some of the challenges. So that takes me to the next question, where I would like you to throw some lights on which are the major challenges that are faced by the Indian biopharma industry and how we can address them.
Yeah, I think I have already touched upon, maybe I can elaborate a little bit on that. I think we need improvement in 5 major areas. One is the skilled manpower. which I just mentioned that that's a big issue. And if you compare it with our Asian counterparts, we are not in good shape. So, and I believe that we need to have, because see, it is not an issue that we are not having good numbers, but they are not ready for industry. This is a challenge even in pharma sector and in biopharma, you understand, because that's a much more complex molecules. There are a lot more complexity in developing them. That is a big issue there. So I think what we require is a collaboration in industry and academia, not only for research, but also to groom this talent and ensure that we churn out the best and brightest for our Indian industry. Because today what happened from the good school, all the best and brightest go abroad for higher studies, and most of them stay there. They don't even come back. So that need to be addressed. Otherwise, in this kind of high technology area, it is very difficult for us to really grow to that level of the developed nations. Second is, when we train people, we always talk about techniques, analytical, manufacturing, and all that. But rarely we teach them about the quality. And you know, today we have a serious issue in the quality. All the FDA audit, EMA audit, WHO audit, where everywhere we are facing problem in the quality, GMP and all that, which unfortunately is not emphasized that much in our academy, which need to be emphasized. And of course, manpower, we need to train them with the latest technologies such as cell therapy, gene therapy, mRNA-based therapy. Second point is the supply chain. This COVID and this present Ukraine war has caused havoc in the supply chain. And that has shown that the key raw material, there's a big, even in vaccine also, when Serum Institute was having their vaccine, they were having problem in getting the ampules to put these vaccines. So this is very important that we need to have this raw material supply inside our country, where I think this Atmanirbharta is very, very important. And if you look at it in biopharma, raw materials constitute about 50 to 60% of the final product cost. And if we look at our other counterparts, such as China and the other Asian nations, we are way behind with respect to the developing raw material inside the country. So something needs to be done. And I know for patent issues, you cannot do everything. But at least some things like buffers, packaging material, sterilizers, these kind of things we should do in-house. In-house means I'm talking inside India. And hopefully government of India, has understood this, where also the API production of pharma is included. And they are giving a lot of support to companies to really set up this kind of units where this can be produced, these raw materials. And I hope this will help us in the long run. Other one is the regulatory expertise. Because see, as I was repeatedly telling, biomolecules, unlike generic products, are highly complex. And it is evolving very fast. I mean, a lot of new technologies are coming, and regulators of the developed countries, they want us to implement these technologies, which I will come a little later. Now, regulators need to understand this, how these technologies will help and how a product developed through these technologies can be properly assessed, that their safety and efficacy and all these things, which they need a big training. And I think that's something which we need to ensure that these trainings are done, and also clinical trial for biopharma. Because many times biopharma are considered as like pharma. They should go through that typical clinical trial and all that. It is not, especially in biosimilar area, because the analytical tools give us a big data on the biosimilarity. And if you understand the biosimilarity well, your clinical trial size can be reduced. And that I think regulators need to understand and accordingly suggest about the clinical trial. Other thing is, even today also, after a lot of discussion, we have 4 bodies for the biopharma to get an approval while you are developing, which I think is too much. And these need to be cut down to put in a single and empowered regulatory body. Next is the ecosystem for innovation to go up to the value chain, which I think we can discuss later. The last one I want to mention is the investment. Because see, as I was mentioning you, in other countries across the world, including our Asian peers, a lot of investment is happening in the biopharma sector. Even in government also. In Israel, for your example, I was 4.2% of its GDP is being used in R&D. Korea, it is 4.3%. Then in China, I think it is close to 5%. Whereas India spends less than 1% for its research, which I think is a big gap. And somewhere we need to, because we have a big vision in pharma and biopharma, and it cannot go only just by biosimilars or generic products. We need to go for the novel products, which is a risky venture where we need really help from government and also from venture capital. As I was telling you, venture capitalists are very skeptical. They will rather put the money in IT and IT sector rather than biopharma and pharma. That need to change.
Thanks for sharing that. And in your talk, you also briefly talked about emerging technologies. So that brings me to the third question, which is how to implement these emerging technologies in the Indian biopharma.
Yeah, see, as I told, biopharma being a complicated molecule and the biosimilarity is another big issue, because if you can really properly establish the biosimilarity of your molecule, it can cut down the clinical trial design. And you know, the clinical trial is the most costly part of a drug development, especially for biopharma, because due to immunogenicity and all other issues. Now, to address this, all regulators now to a large extent agreed that if you have a good package which shows analytical biosimilarity, and some of the, now there are cell-based tools are available to predict the immunogenicity and efficacy, three-dimensional structure of the molecule. If you really have a good package there, that can help cut down your clinical trial. And the vendors have done wonders in the last couple of years with a lot of new sensitive instruments. Some of these I will name, such as continuous manufacturing for downstream process analytical technology, multi-attribute methods for quality control, then end-to-end integrated bioprocess, implementation of NMR, mass spec in QC. Now, if I tell all this, immediately people will say, oh my gosh, so much money I have to invest in that. Yes, it is true. Initial cost will be high, but there are a lot of companies across the world who has actually implemented these technologies in their manufacturing and analytical process. And it is very clear now that in a long run, one of these also, all this come as a part of QBD also, that in a long run, it really saves money. And not only outside, even in India, a few companies like Serum Institute and Enzene, who has really introduced this in their manufacturing process and analytical process, have already got the benefit of that. Because you have a consistent quality product. And that's why regulators like that. Because FDA has a separate section for emerging technologies, where they are open to help the manufacturers. Then what are these technologies, how this can be developed, and a product when it is developed, how they can look at the package, how to build the package, what are the quality considerations you have to see. So I think we are in a good shape now as compared to a few years back. And Indian companies, few companies have started, but we need a larger number of companies, especially who aspire to go to the developed countries. Because the reason I said regulators like it, because they think they get a consistent quality product. And today, both the regulators, FDA, EMA, as well as the pharmacopoeia, including USP and EP, are developing several guidelines and standards for this kind of technologies. And so today, manufacturers have references which they can use when they are implementing this in the technology, and all the regulators help them during the discussion. Because I know with my discussion with Engine that they got a lot of help from FDA and other regulators when they are developing their
product. Right. So you had mentioned that this is more on the innovation ecosystem, because you had mentioned the GDP, contribution towards anything on new on innovative drugs is just probably less than 1% as compared to 4 or 5 in other markets. And also VCs are more interested on IT sector and very less on the biopharma pharmaceutical space because there's a lot of risk involved. So that being said, how do you think we can build an innovation ecosystem in the Indian biotechnology space?
Yeah, I think one point is there before I go for the government's help and the VC's help, that we need to improve also the capabilities in our academia. Because this is a complaint I heard, and I myself, while from industry, I have noticed that there are very few academic labs where you can really give this kind of complicated products, because this is not just a process development like generic pharma products, and that needs a good academic capability. And I think what we need, as I said, that we always talk brain drain. Now I think we need to talk about brain gain. And I think China has done it really good, because I have seen each and every company there have people who came back from abroad, and they are actually leading the different sections of their biopharma companies. And same thing is happening in Korea and Singapore. So we need to do that. We have very few there, and whichever come also after a year and two, they go back. They can survive here. So we need to think that what we need to do. I don't think it is only the working environment, but also the social environment, what the lifestyle rather. Because see, in those countries, I myself was there in several years, the lifestyle is different. And that really helps you to put a lot of your time in R&D, because that needs a dedicated time and need your brain to be free on your regular mundane work, which I think in India, we spend most of the time of our regular mundane work, which government needs to ensure that these are taken care of. Other one is, of course, if we help the academics with the global exchange program, which I think bring good brain here, because if we can't do the brain gain, then at least let us do the global exchange program where people can come and work for some time. And that will help to increase the capabilities of the academy. From government side, I think government also need to incentivize the industry for industry-academia collaboration. It can be a co-fund, this kind of collaboration. DBT, BIDAC, I mean, it has started. DBT, BIDAC is doing in some of the projects there. And also maybe they will look at giving additional special R&D tax incentives to the biopharma manufacturers, because they have to put a lot of money in doing the innovation in this particular area. And also, I think, which I have seen in our counterparts like China, Singapore, that government needs to provide attractive propositions to the top global biotech universities as well as the companies. Because if that is a quick way to build your capabilities and tune your in-house talent to the global level. Because I have seen from USB, we have our office in China, we have our office in Singapore, and all these countries, that's what they have done. All these multinational companies or the big universities are setting their satellite campuses in those countries, and which really helps them to quickly build that ecosystem as well as the infrastructure for this kind of innovation. And another one, which I think is a very old one, is the reformation of IPR Act. I think still there are gaps, which you know very well. During this vaccine also, many companies, although we have a lot of collaborations, but some of the big companies are still hesitant to bring the technology here and give it to Indian companies, because again, that IPR issue. So this I think need to be addressed. So these are some things there, which I think is a long term, but we need to start today because we are already behind. If we start today and really push it hard, we will be able to achieve that. And in the short term, I have one for the scientists. I believe the government should increase the stipend for the research fellows. And the most important is ensure timely disbursement of the stipend as well as the consumable fund. I hear many times from the academics who have got DST-DVT grant is approved, but then months pass by even when the first installment money comes. This is not the way to encourage innovation. When you approve something, you should give it first so that they can immediately start. And secondly is these poor scientists who are working there. Everywhere today, if you look at the scholarships they are giving abroad, we in India, yes, it is much better than what I used to get during my student life. But as compared to the outside, because again, all our best brain goes outside. So we need to build infrastructure. We need to attract them, give them a good life when they are involved in this, developing this innovation or at the R&D stage of biopharma products.
Great. I mean, there'll be a lot of thumbs up from the scientists for sure. So with that, we come to an end of the interview. Once again, thank you, Dr. Chakrabarti, for joining us as our guest for the Biopharma Leaders Stories and sharing your insights. This will be useful to our viewers, and we have started with this series from February this year, and every month, a video interview with notable people from biopharma industry, will be conducted until September. To our viewers, if you have missed any of the early editions or the interviews, you can find them on our official channel. Thank you very much.